All right, so I'm trying to put this together as fun as I possibly could. I wanted to tell you some of the things, some of the experience that I've had here with the districts. And I have the tripod set up because a lot of times that we use the gas detector, of course we have to use the gas detector in doing a confined space entry. So let's start with confined space. It has to be big enough to get in and out of. Has to have limited entry and exit, and it has to be not designed for continuous occupancy. So there's a number of things that enter into that. Here, obviously, a manhole entry is one of them. Years in the past, I don't used to use the manhole lids, of course, with the pry bar, and it's difficult. I mean, they're heavy, and you got to prop them, and then you got to move them over and maneuver them. We did it for a lot of years, and we got to these cam lifts. They're kind of cool. And this clips into the hole right here of the manhole, and we just stand back here, and the lid pops, cover pops, and then we just kind of rock it back like this and slide it over onto the surface. When we go to put it back on, we do just the opposite, put it back into the hole, and then pull it back onto the manhole free. We got these about a year ago. All 3 supervisors have one. I didn't know how well they worked until we had to move we did about 25 entries on a day, and it sure was useful. My gosh, it just completely changed, what we've been doing over the years. Well, one of the things I wanted to tell you about this is that this is going way back. Okay, for the gas detectors, you all know back when, right? They used to have canaries in the mines with regards to spent fuels and whether or not it was a safe atmosphere, and people cleared that way. Things have gotten much more sophisticated now. We've got this Honeywell product, and it works very well. This one here is 2013. We've had since 2013. It's worked a whole lot of years. We've done a lot of entries with it, and it's still working quite well. But the other thing is back when, I remember these days. This is what we used when someone entered a manhole, and I saved the rope. I have no idea why, but I did. Anyway, yeah, we'd pick an individual up, they'd go in, and I'd be like this on the surface, keeping an eye on her, whether or not I needed to pull a 200 and something pound individual out of the manhole, right? You see, it was just no way that was going to happen. We used to tie these to a vehicle, back of a vehicle, and we take the keys out of the car, and just maybe have a piece of rope that we were going to kind of hold on and try to get the person out. And you can see things have improved quite a bit over the years. So health and safety got us these tripods, and the only thing I wanted to show you on this, when we have a permit entry, when there's sewage going, we do use both winches. One is a fall protection, which is this one right here. You can see if I pull down quickly, it'll catch like that. In the construction industry, it's 6 feet, so anything more than 6 feet, we should have fall protection that'll catch the individual. And then the other one is the main winch. The main winch goes on this crossbar right here. It's right here. So you can see that if I had to get removed out of the manhole, it would pick me up straight, up out of the manhole. And that's why we use the main winch on that. The fall protection goes on the D-ring in the back. By the way, if I hook the main winch up on the D-ring, you can see that I'd be slumped over as I was being picked up. So the crossbar on that works real well, and then the fall protection we connect to the D-ring, so that there's a slip type thing. When you're doing the confined spaces, you normally have an attendant and you have a standby if it's a permit. And I'm not against even the standby person having 911 on the phone, just having it on the phone in case you have to try to reach somebody. But just know what's going on and what's at risk. And And you know, I'd ask the attendant too, this person that's right here near the manhole, keep an eye on the person that's in there. We want everybody to be safe. And whatever can happen to a person, bodily function, such and so forth, should something happen, you should know, you know, what's going on. This is from the old timers to me. Never take your eye off the person that's in the manhole that's working. Sometimes we're standing on flimsy boards. Even in the newer manholes where we don't have flow, we've had dead animals, live animals type thing. You never really kind of know what's going to happen. The other thing is always wear a harness. If you're going into a confined space, have a harness on. We get into these situations where it's a brand new line, it's not tied into anything, and you know, we have a ladder, if you will, the steps are there, and we have air. But if you climb in without a harness, nobody can get you out of there. And that's, I will only just say, I don't let anybody go in unless they have a harness on. Even if the emergency people, you know, personnel showed up, they couldn't get you out of there. They'd have to put a harness on you to get out. So this is a minimum. The other thing on the ventilation is I always have these opposite one another on the ventilator. So with the generator, if you set it near the input of the ventilator, it'll pull the fumes in and it'll set the gas detector off. So you put them opposite one another. They got us, our CM manager got us a real nice Honda generator, and we've been using that. Everything else is supplied with health and safety, everything else here. Sometimes we do use the contractor's ventilator. I got to tell you, sometimes, I mean, they got fairly good ventilators going on. And so because we got better ventilation with it, we do use their ventilator. But we don't use their tripod, we don't use their winches, we don't use their gas detector, and we don't use their harness. Those are the things that we check every half a year. But we keep an eye on it every time that we use it. You know, is everything functioning properly, type thing. Yeah, we want everyone going home at the end of the day, and we want to keep everybody safe. And that's what this is all about. So that was kind of it. Never really had too many. We've been safe over the years, and I've climbed in a few hundred of them. And it's gone safe. So the equipment works real well. Operations of it does. The communication part of it does. I mean, I've been dangled over flow, you know, big pipes, that if something went wrong, you know, if I can say anything to you, when you're the attendant up here, act as though you're the person in there. That's the importance of it. And it should be the other way, you know, type thing. Always keep an eye on the individual, make sure that they're doing okay. On the live, you know, you got live flow going, you got one hand on the step, and you're just looking at it. You can just see, in a split second, I'm gone, I'm done. So you got to kind of, well, I hope somebody's paying attention, you know, to what's going on. If something needs to go, you can do this fairly quickly. With this one, I mean, it's quick. Start moving, and you can get somebody removed. So I guess we can go ahead and start talking about the gas detector itself. It's a Honeywell product, DW Technologies, Gas Alert Max XT free. They've been around a while. Even the new ones that you get, they're buying the same brand. So the maintenance folks, a lot of usage of these things, and they've held up very well over the years. Okay, so let's talk about what we get. We got a 10-foot hose and a 3-foot hose. We get a bump gas canister. The charger cord, real simple, goes right on the back of the gas detector. 6-hour charge, it lasts 13 hours. I did want to say this to you. Got a probe. Talk about that in just a second. When I'm going to enter a manhole, I clip this onto the gas detector and I'll lower it in. Because I want to see what I'm dealing with, even without ventilation. I want to know. I'm just kind of the knowledge of it. I want to know what I'm dealing with. So I'll look at it, check it at other levels. If it isn't going off, I know it's really, really safe to go in. Because I know we're going to be using ventilation too. If the gas detector goes off, I know we've got some churning going on. Not all these manholes have a lot of moisture in them. Some of them are actually quite dry when you get in. It's just water flowing in. If you're at the end of a siphon, especially like early morning, I noticed a lot of condensation or early morning type entries. But other than that, they're fairly, it's a fairly workable situation. And so not a lot flying around. Anyway, I use this and check it. The other option is to use a 10-foot hose. And so I can connect it here and I can drop the hose in there and I can see what's going on, here also. This is another way to do it. When I enter the manhole, I have these clipped to me. I have them on me as I'm climbing around. Depends on the situation. I know other people sometimes use this and have the attendant watch the gas meter. I get into big structures and it's difficult to kind of keep an eye on somebody a few feet away. But I want to know what's happening where I'm at. So I usually have the gas detector on me as I'm moving around throughout the manhole. Kind of saw variations. Just know if you use a 10-footer to test the manhole at the very beginning, rather than using the rope, you gotta wait for the gas to rise up the hose in order for it to read. Sometimes that takes just a few seconds, a few moments. So give it time to pull all the way up to get a reading. Obviously with the rope, I'm bringing it all the way down to the bottom and I'm getting a reading right there. It's a fresh reading and I know what's going on. The other thing to know about this, if you have water vapor, if there's water vapor in the air or a lot of particulates, we use the probe. And this probe it's got a fiber filter in it right there. It's kind of a round cylinder type look to it right there. And there's 3 extra in the cap. So if you've got a moisture situation, we use the probe. The only issue is with the probe is you want to be sure that it's at the level that you're working with. In other words, I guess what I'm saying is if you use a 10-footer, you don't want to just put this in like 3 feet down if the person's 8 or 9 feet down, because you got H2S gas, and H2S gas is heavy. So it's sitting, you want to know what it's reading where the person is at. So you're going to want to lower the hose down, or the probe in that case, get it to the level where the person is working at, so that you know that it's safe where they're at. And I'm just giving you all the information that I've worked with, and I've talked to the E&H people, I've talked to health and safety, E&I should say, the electrical instrumentation. I've talked to health and safety people, over the years, and I just kind of gathered this information. But I'm here to tell you, after you've done, worked with this a couple of times, it's all the same. Just really understand how it all works, and it all kind of works together. Actually, it goes together quite well. The other thing I wanted to show you is on the meter. The meter has 4 holes in it. There's 4 holes there. They're tiny holes, but there's 4 holes. And you can see the sensors in it. And the only reason why I wanted to show you that is that if you go to clean these things, you don't want to use any solvents of anything, any kind of cleaning liquid of anything, you know, because it'll go right into the sensor and ruin it. When you're doing the startup, it goes through the self-check and all that. If any of the sensors are bad, it'll tell you right there. I mean, in a split second, you know, CO2 bad, air. And you'll have to go and get it repaired. They'll have to recalibrate it in the dock station and all that. So it's kind of self-efficient as far as that. But if you're going to wipe it down, I would just use like a damp cloth and just kind of wipe it down that way. That's really all we do with these meters. In the operation of it, they have to be calibrated every 180 days. And it'll actually tell me, part of the sequence tells me how many days are left on the calibration. So it's roughly 6 months, 180 days. They go into these dock stations. They're called micro dock 2 stations. And they're throughout the districts. There's one here at San Jose Creek. There's one at San Gabriel Valley Field Office. I know Valencia, Palmdale Landcat, of course Carson has them. So they have the dock stations there. There's no special training for somebody to calibrate at the dock stations, but they usually have technicians that are in charge of it. So like you give them the gas detector and they'll run it through the dock station for you. It takes about 5 minutes to do it. Back in 2015, I wrote some directions and I took some pictures, and I noticed this morning I can go back and take some better pictures for you. But I did give this to somebody and they were able to calibrate it. But it gives you step-by-step on how to run the microdock 2 station and get them calibrated. So that's every 6 months. That'll have to be done. The sequence is kind of like this. You know, when all this is said and done, you're actually going to see how simple this is. Because there's just one button on the gas detector. You'll start it. I'll start it. It'll make some sounds. Once it starts, it tests the pump. So it'll say block the inlet. So I'll block the inlet here and release it. Doesn't take much time. I just block it and release it. And then it'll go through an auto check the program itself and run through everything. After that, it's going to ask me to bump it. It'll tell me calibration days. After it runs through its self-check, it'll say literally right on the screen how many days before, and I haven't used this one yet, it'll tell me how many days it is before calibration. After the calibration, then it'll ask me for the bump test. And when I do the bump test, I use the 3-footer. You'll see me connect it here. You'll see me use the bump gas into the meter. Then the alarms will go off. So the alarms go off because this reads 4 gases. The oxygen, 19.5 to 23.5. It reads that range right there. The lower explosive limit is anything above 9%. The alarms go off. The H2S is 9 parts per million, so anything above 9 parts per million, the H2S alarm goes off. And the last one is carbon monoxide, and that's 24 parts per million. So anything above 24 parts per million, the alarm will go off. And the bump gas, let me read that to you real quick. The bump gas, the H2S is at 75 parts per million, so way above the 9. The carbon monoxide is 200 parts per million, again, way above the 24 parts per million. The explosive limit on this, methane, is 25%, way above the 9% allowed. And the oxygen is set at a lower level. The oxygen on this one is 15%. All I wanted to say is that all 4 alarms should go off when I bump test this. All 4 should go, and it's self-checking on that. If one of them doesn't, it will say error. It'll tell you which sensor and it'll show you error. Then that's when I go and I find the people that actually repair them, which is Frank, John Shea's E&I guy here at San Jose Creek. He's in touch with Honeywell and DW Technologies, and he gets the sensors from them and he orders them. So I'll say, hey, I got a bad sensor, and he'll put the new sensor in, recalibrate it, and then put it to use. The canisters, the bump gas canisters, we get at the warehouse. Sometimes they don't have them, so we actually set up a PO, and I go to the CM secretary, and she orders them for us. We get them once a year. It's the H2S gas that breaks down on them, so that's why we have to get new canisters every year for the bump gas. So this is what I want to do. Once I do the bump gas, the alarms are going to go off, and it's loud enough to where even like in the loudest manhole with everything flowing, you can hear quite easily that there's issues and problems going on. When the bump alarms go, I hold down on the blue button, and I'll see a countdown, and it'll go 3, 2, 1. If I want to keep the gas detector on, I stop it at 1. So it'll go 3, 2, 1, and then I release it, and then it'll reset itself, and then the gas detector is on, and I can go ahead and put it to use. If I hold the blue button down and it goes to 0 and it shuts off, it's not a problem. It's just I would have to restart it. It'll ask me to block the inlet again. It'll show me the calibration days. It won't ask me to bump it again because this is 24 hours. Once I bump it once, it's good for 24 hours. So I can make multiple entries throughout the day. I won't have to re-bump it until the following day, and it's really close at the time. Like if I do it at 7, it'll be good to about 7:01 or so, and then I'll have to re-bump the thing. So they program them quite well. What I do if I know I'm going to have an entry, I actually bump it in the morning. I'll get up in the morning, I'll get it here early, and I will bump it here before I leave, because I want to make sure the canister gas is okay. I want to make sure the sensors are okay. I really just want to make sure that everything is working. And the other thing is so I don't have to take the canister and bump it at the project itself. I can just have it done. So when I get to the project, I can just get it, go, and I can go ahead and get the work done. So a few other things. Talked about the usage of the 10-foot hose. The alarms go off, resets itself. We talked about the calibration and using the microdock too. So when would you have to recalibrate? If you drop it. I'd say if you drop it on the ground. If you're reading real high concentrations for whatever gas it is, you might have to get it back to the microdock station. Exposed to extreme weather. That's one of them for several hours. They do want you to protect it from direct sunlight. You're not supposed to sample lead compounds, silicon vapors, or halogenated compounds like chlorine, bromine, iodine. The meters aren't meant for that. It's meant for the 4 gases that we deal with in our entry. If you see rapid elevated readings and then declining readings, you probably have a very high gas concentration going on with it. That's just part of the literature here with the meter. So other than that, that's kind of all the information from here besides actually running it. And I'll kind of show you that right now. Got this extension piece for the bump gas. And I know I'm going to calibrate it, so I'm going to go ahead and connect the 3-footer. So this is kind of how it goes. Here's the start of the blue button. And you'll hear the pump go. There it goes. It's telling me to block the inlet. I block it and then release it. Now it'll go through its self-check. It's set at the limits. I can see the limits for the 4 gases. It's going to tell me how many days to calibration. Self-testing itself, and it says self-test okay. And so calibration due in 149 days, and it's telling me to bump due now. So I'll take this. The alarm goes. And then I hold the blue button down, and I'll do the countdown with you. 3, 2, 1, and I release it. So now it's zeroing itself. Everything worked okay. I didn't see anything saying any errors on the sensors. Everything's working just fine. To shut it off, I hold the blue button down, 3, 2, 1, I let it go to 0, and it's 0. So now it's bumped, so I know I've got a working gas detector. The other thing I wanted to mention, these are the old scooters that we used to use, the carts that we used to use in the manholes. We used to climb them and literally climb through them, and you know, if the gaps were bad on the vitrified clay pipe or the concrete, we used to watch them fill them, and then we'd go back in and check them. We'd mark them, contractor would go in and repair them, then we'd roll through and we'd check them and make sure that they were done right. They did away with that. They don't want us climbing through the pipes anymore. It's all CCTV now. So we use the CCTV and zone in and for that, and check each one of the joints for all the inspections. I would say, I haven't used these in years, but if we had to go in maybe a couple feet from a manhole, you know, this might be something to entertain type thing, and for some kind of inspection or some kind of damage type thing. But again, we haven't rolled through these in years. It's been a number of years since we've actually put those to use. And of course, we had to roll them in, and get everybody there, and we'd strap the gas detectors on, and then we'd roll through, and they'd repair them, and we'd go back and verify that it was completed. So now that this whole thing has been calibrated, even with the bump gas, I have an operating one. So let's say I had to go to another manhole and operate this. This is kind of how the setup would go. I'd restart it, get that sound. It'll go through its, well, there's block the inlet, so I'll block the inlet. Unblock, tells you, unblock the inlet. It says pump okay. Now it's going through its high setting checks. It's auto zeroing, if you will. Self-testing. Self-test okay. It'll tell me calibration. 149 days calibration due. It says bump due 1 day on it. I got 24 hours from now. But it's already auto reset itself, and it's set to go. I think that was it. That's all I wanted to cover for this class. Thanks, everyone. I want to thank, I wouldn't have all this set up. We asked, and Health and Safety gave us the tripods and everything. Really nice. We asked for the generator, and we wanted to get a much better ventilator for the crew, too. So we asked them for the Allegro. And so I think we're going about things in a much better way than years ago. And it's safer. And that'll conclude the class.